Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys having a great Sunday evening. Welcome into The Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share, like I said there in the intro. It's getting hot in the streets up here in Cleveland with this Browns coaching search. The Browns now have their second interview scheduled. Jesse Minter, Nate Schwartz, Jim Schwartz, Todd Monken, Mike McDaniel, and Grant Udinski. So now we're down to the second interviews. And now things are going to start getting really interesting here in Cleveland, as now this is pretty much going to be the group that we're going to pick from here. Now, I don't think Todd Monken's still a serious candidate. I think Todd Monken was more of, if Jim Schwartz becomes head coach, he'll be the OC possibly. Mike McDaniel and Nate Schwartz do help with, helps with, they have to go by the Rudy rule, 2 minority candidates. So that's where that, those guys will check off those boxes. But I do think Nate Schwartz more than McDaniel is more of a real candidate. Jesse Minter is a guy who, is interesting. I think he would really have to wow them, though, because I think they're leading more offense first or just keeping Jim Schwartz if they're going to go defense. The guy whose name, three names, I think it's going to come down to Grant Udinski, Jim Schwartz, 1A, 1B, however you want to rank them. And then I think Nate Schwartz is a wild card, but Nate Schwartz may be the OC, possibly if Jim Schwartz becomes head coach. I could totally see that because he's going to be an OC. Right now he's a passing game coordinator, so he can get full-time OC duties here, run the whole offense the way he wants, and maybe in 2 years he can look at it, or even a year he could take over. And so that's how I see it right now. Again, not a big, usually I come up here and give a lot more takes and stuff, but just kind of want to break down this list real quick before I get my man up here. So we can see here now we got the list right here, the second coaching interviews lined up. Grant Udinski, Mike McDaniel, Todd Monken, Jim Schwartz, Nate Schwartz, Jesse Minter. I think it's coming down to Udinski and Jim Schwartz. And Udinski is a guy that a lot of people are wondering, is he the next Sean McVay? If the Browns do go ahead and hire Grant Udinski, who they interviewed for 3 hours yesterday, he would be the youngest head coach ever hired in NFL history, younger than Sean McVay. And so I think it's where some people get those comparisons from. He's an offensive-minded guy. He's young. He would be the youngest guy ever, like McVay was. Is he totally McVay? No. Sean McVay had a lot more years of coaching experience in the NFL, I believe, and he was also a full-time play caller for 3 years prior to when he was hired, 2 to 3 years prior to when he was hired. And I think their personalities may be a little different. Even when you just listen to him talk, and I'm going to get to that here in a minute. But without further ado, before I go any further, joining me now, the man, the myth, the legend, the professional fan, Sir Michael Antonese. Mike.
Hello.
Let's get another round. But Mike, it's getting hot in the streets, my friend. You can see here we got our list lined up. Your initial reaction to this list, Mike, of the second interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew they loved Grant Udinski going in. Like, that was an early name that I had heard, but didn't know if it was serious. And obviously Jim Schwartz, Todd Monken, a little shocking. And then obviously we already kind of discussed reasons for Mike McDaniel and Nate Schwartz, though, like you already brought up. I think Nate Schwartz does have some real buzz in the front office for a different role that isn't head coach but offensive coordinator, maybe fixing the our passing game as well. I think it would make a ton of sense, no matter what way they go, whether it's Jim Schwartz or Grant Udinski, to have Nate Schilhaas be the possible OC. But yeah, the other names, I don't think so. Todd Monken, if we hired Todd Monken as a head coach, that would shock me. Like, I'd be shocked.
I think
Like, that would,
a lot of people.
yeah.
I don't see that right now. In the betting markets, it's Udinski and Schwartz at the top. I've seen. So I'm going to start here, Mike. You know, a lot of people are wondering. Let's start with Grant Udinski. He interviewed yesterday, and that was a 3-hour interview, Mike. And I know you've read more about it today and heard some things about the interview. What's your what do you got there for us about Udinski in that interview yesterday?
Well, for one, it took every single minute up, and they used every hour, every second of every hour during this interview to interview this guy, and they were blown away by him. Like, every question he had an answer for. He knew about the interview, and apparently he became like super prepared. Watched a ton of Browns tape, like legit, like went like knee deep in how he would fix the Browns offense. Like, just blew him away, basically. Like, completely, like, here, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. This personnel needs like upgraded. This personnel needs upgraded. I think I can get more out of this guy. Just like absolutely just went through the offense and the team with a fine-tooth comb and said where he would fix it, how he would fix it, and how it would go. And they just loved every minute of it. The dude seems like super focused. And most of all, he wants the job. Like, he really wants the job. He wants the opportunity. He thinks he would be a good fit in Cleveland. You know, I know his age comes in a lot, like his, you know, if you want to call it inexperience, like he has been around the NFL, and, you know, his first year as an offensive coordinator and spending time with Trevor Lawrence. You know, Trevor Lawrence looks like a brand new man. You know, there's a lot to like, and Trevor Lawrence, from what I've been hearing through Jaguars beat reporters, is actually pretty distraught over the fact that Grant Udinski could be gone. Like, he's kind of crashing out a little bit over it. And if that's the case, I mean, here, age be damned, if he's the right candidate and they think he can do it, hire him.
Yeah, this is going to be this is crazy. Kind of just how the last two guys. So you have an older guy in Jim Schwartz, who's been in the building, has experience as a head coach, has an elite defense, obviously. And then you look at a guy like Grant Udinski, who's done some nice work in the last couple of years with, you know, Sam Darnold and now with Trevor Lawrence. And basically an extension of the McVay tree. And so, you know, I think you look at a guy like him, he's got a crazy story too. He played college football. He's a defensive end at Towson, I believe. He's 6'3", 240 back then. And then he eventually got on as a coach at Baylor, was sleeping in his car at Baylor at one point. Then he went from Baylor, then he went to the NFL, I believe, to the Panthers, and he went from the Panthers to the Vikings, and then from the Vikings to now with the Jaguars. And so, in the last two stops he's made a lot of impact according to people in the building. You know, he's been hands-on with the quarterbacks a lot. And you saw it this year with the Jags, and then you saw it last year with Darnold. And so, and he was also pretty much the associate head coach under Kevin O'Connell. Basically, he did a podcast interview about, I don't know, back in the early, it was not too long ago. A lot of people probably wouldn't watch it already because it's the most information you can get out of him publicly, really, to get to know him. And in that interview, he was talking about how he basically, anything Kevin O'Connell went to and did, he followed him around. Any meeting, checking in with the, you know, strength staff, understanding when to schedule what, understanding, you know, how to work, what time to plan workouts, what time to, like, basically anything a head coach is involved with operationally, on and off the field. He followed him around and really just watched and how you learn all the operations and how to run things and how to be a head coach. And so that stuff I'm sure he probably has a good idea about, and then he obviously was under Liam Cohen this year and probably got to see a little bit more. So, I think in terms of that stuff, he probably understands. Probably, and he's probably still raw in some areas. I mean, he's 30 years old, just turned 30 this week. So, how is he going to do with clock management and stuff like that? That's what I would be curious about. And I think they're,
Yes.
really nailed down on that in these interviews in some way to try to figure out, like, you know, maybe throw him out some questions situationally. What would you do here? What would you do there?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would look at first is that. But there is a lot of qualities. Like ultimately, though, here's what I think it's going to come down to with him: is this going to be a guy that can lead a locker room yet? What I mean by that is he a guy that's going to walk in there right now, where he's at in his career at 30, and can he can he challenge a guy like Myles Garrett? Can he get Myles Garrett to buy into him? Could he challenge a guy like even Shedeur Sanders, who's a bigger personality, and get him to buy into him? Could he challenge some of these veteran players, that we have, like if Denzel Ward or let's say I don't think he's coming back, but like if a Joel Bitonio came in there, could he get the buy-in from that kind of guy? You know what I mean? That's ultimately what it's going to come down to because that's really the most important thing to me. Can he galvanize that locker room, gain the respect of those guys? I don't need a guy that's going to come here and try to be liked. And we had Stump Mitchell on here the other night, and shout out to Coach Stump. It was a great interview. And he mentioned, and Mike, you were listening along during that interview, but he mentioned a lot how a head coach has to be able to come in here and challenge these guys and hold them accountable. And that's what they need. And this Cleveland really needs a lot more structure, I think, and culture and stability from that position. I think Kevin had it sometimes, and a lot of times he didn't have it. And I don't think it was all Kevin's fault. I think a lot of that came from the top, especially somebody that used to be here that's now gone back to baseball that was heavily influenced. And I learned more about that behind the scenes over the weekend. So that what a lot of that stuff was true. And so, I think they had to get the structure right first. Is this a guy Andrew Berry can really work with? Can they be, eye to eye, see eye to eye on a lot of things? I don't want a guy that comes in here. That because the Browns still have one of the more heavily influenced analytic departments in all sports. Definitely number one in the NFL still. A lot of those people are still here. And so, even with DePodesta gone. And so, I hope we're not trying to hire a guy to try to mold him into what we want him to be. And I mean, not we, but in terms of what they want him to be in that front office, in terms of you need to adhere to our statistics and our this and that. I want a guy to be hired to have full autonomy to be a head coach because Kevin didn't have full autonomy when he was here. And so I want to have a guy they're hiring him solely because of his leadership skills, qualities, what they think he could be as a head coach, those qualities. And obviously, yes, he is a offensive mind. And you hear the words brilliant and all this stuff, but can he be a guy that comes in there and galvanizes the locker room, gets a quarterback developed and to where they need him to be, and can help regroup that offense and get it back to or get it to a point where it finally looks like the games we saw this weekend. Can it look like those offenses one day? And so that's a guy I'm looking for because if he doesn't check off those boxes in terms of I know he's got a good offensive mind. I think he'll probably be if he wasn't a head coach. If the Browns don't hire him. Eventually he'll probably call plays as a OC eventually, either in Jacksonville or somewhere else. I'm sure he'll probably do a really good job. But is he ready to be a head coach? Is he ready to lead a locker room? Can he even lead a unit yet? In terms of because calling plays and being a head coach isn't the easiest thing to do at all. And Stump talked about that. And I've talked about that before, and I've heard that from other coaches in the college ranks even. I remember a guy who was a high level assistant or Urban Meyer for years in the 3 national championships. I asked him one time, and he's like, "Hey man, that's it's a heavy task. It's not for everybody calling plays and being a head coach." And so there's a lot they're asking of him here. If this is who they hire, Mike, because that's a lot on his plate. He's not just walking in any situation. He's walking into a complete rebuild offensively. We really don't have a solidified franchise quarterback. We don't have any offensive linemen. We don't have any real quality. We don't have a receiver that we really are like, yeah, that's the guy I mean, Jerry Jeudy maybe could be revitalized. I know he had a down year, but it's a complete overhaul, like Andrew said, offensively. And so, and they've won 8 games in 2 years. So it's a lot he's walking into here, and it's a lot they're going to be asking of him.
Right.
the biggest thing to me, if you hire the guy, I would like to have Jim Schwartz in the building if they can coincide, because I would like a guy. Here's the one thing McVay had when he went to the Rams. He had Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips had head coaching experience, and he can lean on Wade Phillips, and Wade Phillips can take care of the defense. He never had to worry about the defensive side of the ball. And so, the Browns are kind of in a weird spot here, Mike, because they've given Schwartz that second interview, and maybe Schwartz is telling them, you either hire me as head coach or I'm leaving. But, I think they've always wanted it all along to be one of these guys possibly as head coach, and Schwartz is DC. I don't know if Jim Schwartz has kind of forced their hand on it. And, he has the right to do that. But I don't know. So there's a lot going on here, Mike. I know I went on a rant there, but I mean, we're going to Udinski, because I think ultimately it's coming down to Udinski or Schwartz. I think that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions they got to answer with Udinski. At least with Jim Schwartz, I know what I'm going to get.
Right. Yeah, I'd just be worried about the overhaul of the offensive unit. Like, I'm wanting like new faces, new voices in those rooms. Absolutely. I love Jim, and this might be a very hot take to some Browns fans out there because Jim's so loved. But if we're boiling down between the two, call me crazy. I want to take the shot on Grant Udinski and see what can happen if assuming everything that they're saying about him is true, and that this guy's the next McVay. Kevin O'Connell once described him as a guy who applies for a job at a car wash, but if you asked him to, could build a car from scratch. Just like that kind of dude who could just like fix whatever it is. Like, I feel like that's kind of the guy that the Browns need, just a fixer. Someone to go in there and just like absolutely fix the team down to the studs. And when you're winning, it's easy to be a leader when you're winning. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. He's not walking into a winning situation.
Right.
Like, they're coming off 8 wins in 2 years. Guys are pissed off and upset. Some guys were upset they got rid of Kevin. Some guys were upset, like DeJuan Jones was upset when they fired Kevin. Joel Bitonio voiced his opinion about Kevin. There's some guys, I don't think they were like all the way upset, but they were kind of upset about it. And I think there were some guys too that, were pushing for Schwartz, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball. And they've been lobbying for him. So, I mean, you bring this 30-year-old in there and just say, all right, now it's your team. And here's, the best player in football, Myles Garrett, who is fresh off of a trade request a year ago, and has been voicing his displeasure, doesn't have a problem doing it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things in play here that I'm just like, I don't know. And how big of an influence does Myles have? Because here, Andrew Berry is represented by Clutch Sports. That's Myles' agency too. If Myles wants Jim Schwartz at the end of the day, good thing that might happen, Mike. I don't know. So, but I think this is strictly coming down to the ownership solely, because at the end of the day, your owner's the one that makes the hire. Say whatever you want about your GM and stuff. The owner's the one that makes the hire in any franchise at the end of the day. So, like, Arthur Blank is the one that handed Kevin Stefanski the envelope the other night at his house, had a steak dinner and all that stuff. It comes down to the owner. Vrabel to the Patriots, he was like Kraft's second son. And of course, he was going there. You know what I mean? It always comes down to the owner making the hire with the head coach. So, I think this is, if Jimmy Haslam likes Udinski, or if Udinski gets hired, I think it's solely because Jimmy Haslam wanted him. I'm not sure what Andrew Berry, where he thinks about this. Obviously, we haven't heard him talk since he fired him, Kevin. But I don't know. I'm just really, because that's one thing too. I think him and Myles have the same agent, and if Myles, I think we would both say, if we had to bet, Myles probably would rather have Schwartz as head coach.
Yeah. But then again, even he at the end of the season was like, I want whatever's best for the Cleveland Browns. I want that, whatever that guy is. And I think Myles would be, this might come as a shock. I think Myles would be more okay with a Grant Udinski hire than we might believe. I think there are other guys in that locker room that would kind of disagree, Denzel Ward being one of them. But I think Miles would be like, oh, okay, fresh new offensive mind. That's what we need. Because even if Schwartz leaves, I think Jason Tarver would make a great DC. And I think also like here's the thing: Jim Schwartz is a hell of a leader. So is Jason Tarver, but the defense he runs isn't hard. It's like Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator. Like Greg Roman's offenses aren't difficult to run. It's just more of like, like it's very samey. Like you can get the most out of certain players if you have excellent talent, but if you don't, then you get exposed. Jim Schwartz, his like wide nine defense is benefited from our personnel being so great. I think Jason Tarver could run that defense just as well.
I
But
think that would come down. Here's what I think that would all come down to. This is what it's going to come down to for Udinski. And this is where Kevin Stefanski fell apart. And Stump and I talked about this the other night. When did stuff go south with Kevin Stefanski with the Browns? When they fired that offensive staff.
yeah,
When they fired out, and I don't clearly if he's taking Bill Callahan with him, everything we said all along must have been true that it wasn't Kevin that made that made those firings at that time.
yeah,
It was people above him. So just we all know who that was. But um, when he fired Alex Van Pelt, when he fired Bill Callahan, when they let go, so they fired Stump. Well, they didn't fire Callahan, but they didn't prevent him either from leaving. They just let him go. So I don't think they really cared if he left people in the upper management. But anyways, um, when they made those firings like that, they were never the same since. They were an 8-win team. And I think Kevin had a hard time. He played musical chairs with his staff for 2 years, and he already was a guy that kind of was mismanaging his staff even before those firings at certain years, which we heard from Stump the other night. But when you have a strong staff like that around, he can lean on a guy like Bill Callahan and Stump because we heard Stump the other night, just the knowledge he has alone. You listen to a guy like that, how much he simplifies the game when you listen to him, and it's just common sense. I guess Bill Callahan was the run game coordinator. That running game wasn't the same after he left.
right,
Alex Van Pelt, was great at his job and was really good with the quarterback development, and did a hell of a job in that playoff game when he filled in. So, guys like that, when they left, it wasn't the same around him. He had a lot of first time guys. He had guys who were kind of wild cards, and Ken Dorsey, and then there was a power structure struggle there where he didn't want to give a play calling to the guy he brought in Dorsey, and he was trying to call plays and assistant never called plays. The whole thing. And so, how is this guy going to build out a staff is very important. But the thing with Schwartz, though, yeah, they could run the same system, but it may not be Jim Schwartz calling it. You know what I mean? It may not be Jim Schwartz coaching it. It may not be Jim Schwartz's culture and energy on that side of the ball. I think that's what those guys gravitate towards because, we saw it when Joe Woods was here those couple of years. They had the system they were running wasn't terrible. It was kind of similar to what San Francisco does, but the development wasn't there. The accountability wasn't there. It seemed like the energy, the discipline, it didn't look like a high level defense at all. It wasn't until Jim Schwartz got here, and then a guy like JOK, everybody said, "Oh yeah, he's for real." And a lot of those guys in that defense got developed in the guys. Grant Delpit, Devin Bush. A lot of guys revitalized their careers under Jim Schwartz because it's more than just a scheme. It's his qualities as a developer, a head coach, or a head coach at the defense, a leader. You know what I mean? It's so. And just his style, the energy, the accountability every day. That's what you're going to have to replace, and that's hard to find. Not everybody has that. When Jim Schwartz walks in a room, there's respect. If you put somebody else in there, maybe Jason Tarver because he's been in there. I know the guys like Tarver. Maybe Tarver he's been prepared. One thing I like about Tarver, he's kind of been developed under Schwartz to probably become a DC here pretty soon. So that to me makes a lot of sense. But in terms of head coach with a guy like Udinski, what's his staff going to look like even? He's only been in the NFL for he's been in the NFL since how long? Let me look it up here. I know he was with the Panthers, he was with the Rams. Or not the Rams, the Vikings, and then obviously now with the Jaguars.
all I know is hiring a guy like that will mean that Chad O'Shea is probably gone forever.
He's probably gone already. He might be going to. What if he went with Kevin too and Bubba?
Well, if he went with Kevin, man, Corey, I'm sorry. Drake London, I'm very sorry. Get ready for 500-yard seasons.
So, so Grant Udinski, Mike, has been in the NFL. And hey, Chantel, good to see you. She says, "Hey, Joseph and Mike. Udinski's been in the NFL since 2020. He was a coach and assistant with the Panthers for 20 to 21, assistant to the head coach in special projects in 22 with the Vikings, assistant quarterbacks coach with the Vikings in 23, assistant offensive coordinator and assistant quarterbacks coach with the Vikings in 2024, and then last year offensive coordinator with the Jaguars." So
he's been promoted every year he's been in the NFL.
yeah, he's definitely gone up the rankings pretty quick. So that's obviously pretty impressive. He is a guy on the rise pretty quickly. I just wondered, that's the one thing I want to know about him. Like, I would ask them, like, how are you, what's your ideal staff? Like, what kind of, do you have an idea of what your offensive line coach would be? That's a very important hire. Do you know what your quarterback coach would be? Who would your OC be? You know, who would your wide, like, he's got to be able to build on a staff too, because if he doesn't have a good staff around him, especially how raw and young he is, and he hasn't even called plays yet, and he's going to be a head coach, like, he's got to have a damn good staff around him.
Right. Yeah. And
he's been around some.
I
don't know of a first time DC and Tarver. I think the best thing that Rams did with Sean McVay, they put Wade Phillips next to him.
Yeah. Maybe short stays. I don't know.
I would be ideal to me. You know, that would be ideal to me. And
maybe they just pay him a bunch. Yeah.
Well, remember what Stump said the other night? He said they need to hire 2 head coaches. He said, you got one in the house in Jim Schwartz, keep him on defense. And he said, you hire the other one on the offensive side of the ball. Now, he liked Todd Monken. He thinks Todd would be good with Jim, but as the OC, and then make Jim the head coach. But he said, whoever you get, you know, if you think got OC that you think is a head, or offensive guy who you want to hire as head coach, you got to keep them both. And I think Udinski, the best thing that will happen for Udinski if he gets hired, Mike, is as the head coach, he needs to have that experience next. So he's got to have somebody you can lean on, because he needs developed in a way to become a head coach. Like, he's not just going to be, you don't become a head coach. You don't become a great quarterback or a great head coach. Yeah, experience is a great teacher by doing it more, but you got to have people you can lean on that have been there and help you. I mean, look at Caleb Williams right now. Yeah, they lost tonight, but look at a difference in a year with Caleb Williams, Mike, and even 2 years with the rhetoric was on it. You get a guy like Ben Johnson in there who challenged him, and Caleb was kind of hesitant on it at first, but then eventually Caleb bought in because he understood what Ben was teaching was right, and look what happened. Magic.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's same thing in coaching. Coaches get developed too. And so to me, that's what it's going to come down to. Now, Chantel says here, I hope Stefanski takes Bubba Ventrone with him. Yeah, don't we all? She says she thinks it's going to be Schwartz as head coach and McDaniel as OC. Yeah. So Mike McDaniel, Mike's another guy who I think is an OC actually could probably do a really good job as an OC. No, I'm not sure how his offense. No, he's in colder weather, so his team's down in Miami didn't do that well in cold weather. But what do you think of that combo right there, Mike? Schwartz is head coach, which I don't mind at all. But you know, the OC. What do you think of Mike McDaniel?
Well, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, I think Mike McDaniel is going to get overpaid in Philadelphia or any other place, or Tampa. Tampa's another one. I don't think McDaniel, because here's the thing, as a head coach, he's got slim pickings, right? But as an OC, Mike McDaniel would be one of the top OC candidates, period, end of sentence, period. Like, as an offensive mind, Mike McDaniel is really good. Really, 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 really good. He got the most out of Tua Tagovailoa, who this year looked like the worst football player I've ever seen. He got, the most out of a Dolphins offense that was employing, Raheem Mostert and, a couple of other just old head players. I don't think that mixing works. I think Mike McDaniel, having been a head coach, being demoted to OC, and like having somebody like Schwartz, I just don't see that pairing working. I think a Grant, a Udinski, and a Schwartz remaining DC kind of works just a little bit more because Udinski, like, I don't know. I think Udinski would approach the situation from a better standpoint, if that makes any sense. Like, I think McDaniel and Schwartz would clash a little bit more than Udinski and Schwartz.
Yeah. What do you think of this? There was a rumor over this weekend, not sure how much validity is to it, but that Jim Schwartz and Shieldhouse is a possible combination. And that could come out the middle of this week. They said Jim Schwartz is head coach, Nate Shieldhouse is OC. I like Nate Shieldhouse. I've done some research on him. I like him. I think he'll be an excellent offensive coordinator next year. And he's a guy, remember I brought him on the show a month ago when I was referring to Chris Shula. Shieldhouse is a guy, Mike, I think will be a really good OC. I think he's passing coordinator. He's worked heavily with the quarterbacks there with the Rams, and he's drawn up plays for Sean McVay. He was a coach at Iowa State with Matt Campbell for a while. Then he was with the Rams he's been with the Rams for a while now, but he's a guy who's really come up the ranks. Really tense guy too, really attention detailed. Was a former quarterback himself at Illinois, so he has a playing experience as well. What do you think of that combination, Schwartz and Shieldhouse? I like that personally. I think here's what I think too with that, Mike. I don't know how much longer Jim Schwartz is going to be a coach. I think if you hire him as head coach, there's a good chance maybe you get 3 years out of him. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it's 5 or more. But let's say maybe in 2-3 years, Shieldhouse is OC. Maybe it's time to make a switch, or sometimes stuff gets stagnant, or maybe Schwartz wants to move on, or maybe he's going to retire. I don't know. Put Shieldhouse there as head coach, but he can be developed to become a head coach.
Yeah, could be. And here, I like Shieldhouse. I think he'd make a great OC. I think if Schwartz becomes head coach, I'd say I think that's my favorite combination, and the most likely combination if Schwartz does get the job. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it too. I'm surprised he didn't bring in Brian Flores for an interview. That's surprising. A lot of people have thought that, Chantel. I think a lot of it because he runs a 3-4 defense, and I think our defense it just doesn't that schematically does not fit because it's a different alignment with your front seven, and I think that just doesn't fit with what we have, Mike. Because you just drafted Mason Graham, you got Malik Collins. You want to pay. You got Myles Garrett, who's more effective, obviously on the edge. Just broke the all-time sack record. Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, like they got a lot of depth in there.
And you have like true linebackers. You don't have guys that'll put their hands in the dirt. I don't see Carson being the guy to put his hand in the dirt and then drop into coverage. You want him right in the middle, like work in the middle of the field. Like,
yeah, it just doesn't fit with their personnel defensively.
Yeah,
and that's all he's ever called as a 3-4. Munkin gonna go to the Giants with Harbaugh. Watch and see. I agree with that.
probably.
It probably is where it'll go. I like Grant. He gives me great vibes. Says Parmesan, good to see you. So he
I agree.
likes Grant Udinski.
I'm kind of sold on him, which I didn't think I would be. It's a little crazy.
Well, here's the video, Mike, of Grant Udinski talking ball that went viral. That everyone, Browns fans have just been, drooling over. Here's that.
One that shows up is kind of his feel in space. Right? You see some of these teams playing zone coverage where they have defenders who have vision on the quarterback, and they have different spots to get to and different landmarks, or they're reading off of what our routes are to kind of determine what their drop is going to be. He has a feel for where those defenders are going, where they're trying to get to, and then where his route fits off of that. And that kind of takes a second and third level order of processing, not just to know, we tell you to get to this spot, but this spot is going to open up. Because we're telling you to get to a spot that looks covered. But if you have a great understanding of what the defense is doing or what the defense is trying to do, then you can run your route in a certain way to try to get to that spot on the field or to try to dictate the coverage to play a certain way. All right, now I run a route this way and I lean out a bit, gets that defender to move out, and now I opened up my window inside. Little things like that that are really subtle show up with him when he's running routes. Then you see it in the run game too, with my understanding of angles on the block. You see a lot of plays that he's making, getting down, blocking safeties, blocking corners. I mean, he's blocking linebackers on some plays. And you really can only do that when there's a physical mismatch at time. If you have great technique, great angles, you have a great understanding of where the run is going to go, where the blocks inside are going, because how those blocks distribute will change how the safety or the linebacker is going to trigger on the run, right? Because they're keen. He knows, okay, the safety is keen, the tight end, or the safety is keen, the tackle. The tackle does this. This is the safety's response going to be. And because he's responding like that, I have to take this angle. That's a really high level, series of thought.
Very impressive there listening to him talk. I've been around some coaches in my career, some legendary coaches. At the high school level. I've been around ones in college and listened to them. I've heard, just watching and hearing them even. That one, he was pretty impressed. I like the attention to detail. The intensity when he's talking is what I look at, because if you want to compare him to McVay, right? Now you just heard that clip of him talking. Because ultimately here's if I'm hiring a guy like they did with McVay, that's the biggest thing I'm looking for. Can you grab? I know you know ball. I know you know all that stuff, offense and all that. But can you, when you talk, do all eyes point to you? And what I mean? Can you gravitate a room and have that attention and that respect and that what I mean, and have that commanding voice? Here's Sean McVay when he got hired, Mike. This is the first day he went into the Rams building, and you could tell back then just his intensity. And it's the same intensity you saw tonight on the sideline in that playoff game tonight in Chicago. You knew McVay was a dude from day one.
And, of course, Todd Gurley, and all three of them are beyond fired up. There's excitement in the air out in Los Angeles, and Sean McVay is the reason why.
Great to meet you, man. Hey, this guy, the only guy that's ever given my boy Trent Williams any trouble, man.
How you doing,
Great
bro?
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, really, can't tell you how excited I am to work with you guys, and we got to come together. We got to establish a culture. What is our standard, and then we got to all uphold it together.
Most definitely.
But we do those things, man. You see some of the pieces in place. It's not about saying anything other than just let's get better today, focus on the process, and hey, get this thing going, man.
It's a great day for the Los Angeles Rams to be sitting here to announce Sean McVay as our next head coach for the franchise. And I think when we did our homework, when we talked to a lot of mentors and people around the league, the perfect fit for this job was Sean McVay.
Our character will be the foundation, and it'll be the glue that holds us together as an organization. We're going to be committed to our process, and we're going to be committed to a standard of performance. And those things are going to be focused on daily improvement and daily excellence. And that's what's going to help guide us on our journey to try to achieve a world championship and bring it to this great city of Los Angeles.
I think when you look at the homework over the past few weeks that we've done on Sean, and he won't say it, so I'm going to embarrass him. The terms you saw were brilliant, genius, star. John Gruden said yesterday, special. Those are amazing adjectives when you talk about describing someone.
When you meet him the first time, you feel the energy, you feel the passion, you talk football with him. He's got a clear and concise way of letting you know, presenting, this is what we're going to do, both sides of the ball. This is how we're going to execute. This is how we're going to win games. And then you're feeling it right there, and you walk out of that room and go, wow, I'll follow that guy up the hill.
Anybody that tells you in this league the ultimate goal is not to win a Lombardi trophy is kidding themselves. But we know that in order to do that, it takes a process, a standard of performance, and we're going to be very committed to that. And that's a daily approach.
Sean, what was your pitch to this management group? How did you sell yourself?
Well, I think we just talked about creating a culture of we, and it's all about the team. That's the most important thing. And how can we create a culture, maintain a culture, and then give ourselves a chance to consistently win year in and year out?
And so, and he went on in that video, Mike, to talk about how his first priority was to go assemble a great staff, but you could tell by watching that the intensity from day one. He walked in that room with those two players and was like, just told them right off the bat, like, hey man, we got everything we need here. Just what we're going to be doing. Like those guys were kind of caught off guard by that too. But he just went in and did it and took command right away. Here's what I want, Mike, is somebody to do exactly what he just did. that Rams organization for a while, Mike. You remember growing up the Rams? They were shit. They weren't that good when we were kids. I don't remember them being that good until he got there. Really, they moved to LA, and then he came in the fold and they became something. But they were never like made the playoffs here. And the Rams were never like a superstar team when we were growing up. So
Right.
well, some years they were the shitter, and so what I like what he did there, and what I want somebody to do here is to come in that room in that press conference and tell them, if you don't believe we can win a Super Bowl, get out. And I want whoever we hire to come in here and have that kind of message. Yeah, we need a quarterback. Yeah, we got to rehaul the offense. All the naysayers and everybody, always saying the Browns, 20 years away and blah, blah, blah. I need somebody to come in here and be very commanding and just say it right off the bat like that. This is what we are. Stop with the loser attitude. Stop with the accepting losing. This defeated mentality's got to get out of the building. It's time to get down to business. Start believing you're going to be a champion. It's like start believing we're going to win the AFC North next year, and visualizing it and writing it down. We will. Like that's what I want. I want somebody to come in. That's how you change a culture. And with Udinski, I don't know. We don't know a lot about him. We don't see him. At least with McVay, we saw a lot of clips of him with Washington before he went to the Rams because he was offensive coordinator, and you kind of had to feel his command and what he was, his development, right? And
Right.
you could see it with Udinski. We just don't know a whole lot about him. So that's the stuff they got to be really sure about. I hope he doesn't get hired just because of his offense. If they're hiring him just for his offense, it's not going to work. So, we need somebody in here. Like this isn't fantasy football. We need somebody in here that can have that kind of command. And if he's that kind of guy, if they believe he is, which I hope there's people in that building that can identify that. I do question if there is. Then I think you might have something there.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Let's see here. You need McCarthy, but the Browns are idiots, says Greg Turdholler. Mike McCarthy's a name I have heard brought up, Greg. I think he's only interviewed with the Titans, Mike. Obviously McCarthy, he's at all the coaches obviously available. A lot of them, he's the one who obviously not only had coaching experience but has a Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin too, but Mike Tomlin I think is taking a year off. So, McCarthy's interesting. He's probably not going to get looked at. Obviously, he hasn't got an interview. So I know some people believe they should have went with McCarthy or at least gave him a look. I've heard that name. I think Mike McCarthy's a solid coach. You look at his years with the Cowboys. I mean, they weren't bad year. I mean, some years they were a 12-win team and stuff. Made it to division round in the playoffs. I think McCarthy is who he is. He one thing about McCarthy, he's a guy who definitely knows how to work with meddling owners, Mike. So what do you think of Mike McCarthy?
I think you kind of nailed hit the nail on the head. I think he's a fine coach, good coach even, but has experience with a plethora of different ownership groups. But I think the game has passed him by a little bit, and just the way the game is played, the game is coached. I think that's the only thing he doesn't have going for him. Like it looked pretty bad at the end there with Dallas. So I'm kind of out for those reasons, and people kind of forget. Like I think he's a good coach, but he's never as far as like the superb offensive mind or the leader, he's just never been like great at like any of those kind of aspects. He's just been like decent enough at them. It's kind of like the jack of all trades coach. You know what I mean? Like he's decent.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't think the game's passed him by. I just think he, I think he just the Dallas wasn't the best situation at the end there. Like Greg says here, everyone looks bad at the end with Dallas. Even when Jimmy Johnson got ran off by Jerry Jones, and Jimmy Johnson's the Hall of Famer, but Jerry runs off strong personalities. I think, Greg, you're probably right. I agree with you, Greg. The Browns, if I was in charge, the Browns should hire somebody like that who is proven. and will come in and establish something. That's a culture and have stability, which I think they need the most. But that Jimmy Haslam is in some ways, not a lot. Well, maybe not. Backtrack. Maybe not a lot. Maybe he is a lot, but he has a lot of similarities with Jerry Jones in terms of a meddling owner, very involved. You know, that's who Jimmy Haslam is. I think Jimmy Haslam too, Mike. He's been trying. Jimmy Haslam, whether it comes to quarterback or head coach, he's always tried to take a swing. He's always tried to finally. I think it might be their biggest downfall if this doesn't work out. If they go with him, I think his biggest downfall is to this point, and because it hasn't worked out, is he's always tried to be the guy who found the guy. I want to take a Baker Mayfield or a Johnny Manziel or the big splash name and make it work here in Cleveland. And none of them worked out. I'll get Deshaun Watson. Didn't work out. Shador Sanders. We'll see how that works out. He's always gone for the big personality of quarterback or the bigger name, the splash, but then also at head coach even. I'm gonna hire Freddie. We'll hire Freddie Kitchens. He brought in Hugh Jackson, and they thought that was going to be the second coming of the next great coach in the NFL. Remember they remember the whole intro video. They drove him into the front door and all this stuff. And so,
Right.
and then Kevin Stefanski. I think when they hired Stefanski 10 years ago, I think, and this is something this reminds me of is remember when we hired Stefanski not 10 years ago, 5-6 years ago, I think 6 years ago it was. You heard a lot of these same kind of things with Udinski, even the smart mind and brilliant offensive mind and all this stuff. But Kevin at least called plays before he came here. He was in the NFL a lot longer. Now he was only with one organization, but Haslam's always tried to take a swing. I think the swing right now is he's trying to find his version of McVay, or his own super. He wants to find this young superstar coach that nobody else has identified. And I don't think Grant Udinski's interview. There's 9 head coaching availabilities right now, or this offseason there was, and so far, well, not offseason, but since Black Monday, 2 weeks ago, whatever that was. Now it's 8 because the Giants hired Harbaugh. But at all 9 teams, we're the only team that gave him an interview.
Right.
We were the only team that gave Kevin an interview back then too. So, and I'm not saying that was all bad, but I just wonder, you think, the Titans have literally interviewed everybody but him. So I don't know. What do you think of that even? Does that give you kind of pause for concern a little bit? Nobody else has interviewed this guy.
Not necessarily. Because
it's not like the Browns have the best track record of finding coaches and quarterbacks.
No, but I don't know if that gives me pause per se.
I'm not saying it's a big negative. He might be the next McVay or the next big guy, superstar guy. But my whole point is they gotta be really sure. And Jimmy, you can't just take swings on guys just because you want to have your own version of I found the next McVay and all this. You can't have ego when you're doing this type of stuff.
Right.
You gotta do what's best for your organization and for your players. Most importantly, your players are your greatest assets. He said McCarthy would develop Gabriel and Shador. You get the best out of whatever Watson has left. If you could keep Schwartz and hire McCarthy, you'd probably have the best coach to do in the NFL. He said Atlanta fans don't realize what's about to hit them, Mike. I know our guy Corey, our fellow Falcons fan, he's trying to talk himself into it, Mike.
I know. Poor bastard.
Yeah. Most of the best candidates are still working the playoffs, so don't panic just yet. You are, yes, they are. I know Chris Shula, though, Mike, he didn't even take the interview with the Browns. That was my guy who I liked. But so far, this is probably going to be the guys right here. These 6 guys. They're probably going to be the 6 guys. Once you get to the second interviews, this is your list. So Jesse Minter, Nate Scheelhaase, Jim Schwartz, Todd Monken, Mike McDaniel, Grant Udinski. And all out of the playoffs, or no, outside of Scheelhaase, all out of the playoffs. So, things are about to get real interesting this week. Once you get to these second interviews, now this is when the owner's really more involved in the interviews, and asking a lot of the questions, and this is it. So, this is probably what we're looking at. I don't think any more names are going to get added to that list, Mike.
I don't think so either.
He said, "Poor bastard, indeed," is Corey. But McVay is pedigreed though, and McVay is like a third generation coach, NFL coach. Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think McVay and Udinski are apples to apples like everybody else on Twitter is making them out to be. McVay was in the league for a lot longer, had more experience than Udinski in the NFL. He also was a play caller, and I just don't know. I just played the video there. McVay's first day on the job there in LA. You saw it back. You could see it from day one. The intensity, the way he talked and spoke, just the leadership quality he had. You could see it instantly. It just came off of him. To me, what makes a really good coach too is when they walk in that room, that first meeting with their team isn't the prettiest of meetings. It's not like, "Hi, my name's Coach. Coming to coach you guys," and it's all rah rah. I remember one time in high school, my high school coach came in, Dan Larum, and our first meeting because he was, he took over a situation that was pretty rough to say the least, and he walked in there from day one and just let it out. I mean, this first meeting was just like, "This is what we're doing. We're not doing this crap anymore. This losing stuff's not going to continue." And he was damn near like yelling at everybody in the meeting. I mean, it was, but looking back on it, it was setting the tone, right? He was setting the culture and the standard from day one. And basically, he also was kind of weaving out, the guys that were used to the old ways and were enabled in that old culture, and molded in that ways. And he was weaving them out, and he came from a winning pedigree in high school and went and played college ball. He understood a lot of that stuff, and so, but that's what McVay, I'm sure, did in his first interview with his team when he addressed his team. It was probably in a he started off clapping and stuff and excitement, but then he started lighting into what the standards are going to be and setting the tone from day one. I don't know if Udinski's that guy. When you listen to Udinski talk in interviews, he seems very soft spoken and like nice, but I want to know what he's like, when he's off camera. Is he an asshole? It's okay if you want your head coach to be an asshole a little bit. That's what I want to know.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, Corey, poor bastard indeed. But well, Mike, what do you expect this week? What do you think? How much longer you think? When do you think, Mike, we'll have, as we in closing here, when do you think we'll know who our next head coach will be?
I'd say probably by the end of next week.
Possibly next Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think by next Sunday night. I think Sunday night there's a good chance we're up here reacting to who the Browns just hired to be their next head coach.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
What's your final prediction?
I think it's going to be Udinski. I really do.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, it's tough. It's close. I think it's him or Schwartz. Man, I don't know. It's just, you don't know. You know what I mean? I'm going to slightly say Schwartz, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Udinski.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to say Schwartz, and I'm going to say Schilhaas is his OC. Or maybe Munkin. One of the two. I think one of those two guys, if Schwartz gets hired on that list, will be his OC. But would I be surprised if they hired Udinski? No. Now, the only thing I would be surprised by is if they still kept Jim Schwartz. And I would love that, but
right.
That's, to me, I don't know. Schwartz is the best name on the list, but you would have to pay a hefty salary to his OC. I think they are actually interviewing those guys as potential OCs as well. That's a good point, Greg. A lot of times these interviews are that. They are looking at guys to be OCs. The thing with Udinski, he's an OC already, but he doesn't call plays. I think he's going to have to get somewhere where he can call plays, maybe have more autonomy, and it's the offense to be his full side of the ball. What do you think, Mike, of people that say, why would he want to go to Cleveland? What do you think of people that say that?
What, like as an OC?
Yeah, they're like, well, if he's going to leave Jacksonville and go, if he wants to go call plays somewhere else, why would he come to Cleveland? What do you say to that?
Well, they could give him the head assistant head coach moniker, which is like a big deal, and essentially puts him right up in the rung to become a head coach quicker if he's not seriously considered for the job this time around.
I think what I would do too is put Schwartz as head coach, do exactly what you just said, associate head coach, basically, assistant head coach, and in a year or two, after some more development, if you think if he's a guy you don't want to let out of the building, you think it's time to make that switch, you just pump him up to head coach.
Yeah,
like
very well.
you basically you put him in a position where he can develop for a couple more years and mature a little more, and then by the time he's 32, 33, now you can say, all right, now you can be our head coach. And Schwartz is a little older then, so JW just called and wants me to coach the team. Likes the way I operate. Jersey says, Mike. So Jersey's going to be the new head coach, Mike. What do you think of that?
Pretty cool.
How do you think he would be as head coach? Obviously you've been around him as your manager. What do you how do you think he'd be as a head coach?
He'd do all right.
How do you think that first meeting would be with his team? Would it be very intense?
Depends how many Diet Cokes he's had.
He needs his Ron. Getting his Ron on. Munkin is going with Harbaugh, 90% sure. Yeah, probably. Ethan Edwards says they were going to be bad next year, no matter who they hire. So they should hire someone that'll be fun, like Belichick and his girl. What a circus that would be every day. Yeah, I would not even attempt to call. I wouldn't even call him Mike if Bill Belichick and his Jordan, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm out on that. I think all those guys want to work with Shedeur Watson for real. They're egomaniacs, and they think they can fix the problem, I'm sure. And I think, Greg, that's a good point, because I think Haslam, deep down inside, thinks he still can get something out of Watson. That's got it. We can't sit up here and not think that does not bother him still. That everybody goes around and says he made the worst trade in NFL history. Right. And he's paying him $80 million next year. So why not try it one last time? Because I think Shedeur and Watson could definitely be the competition going in the spring between those two. I would go get a guy like Malik Willis. I think he's a guy, Mike, you and I both like. And Coach Stump Mitchell even said the other night on our show that he would go get him over both of those guys. But if not, I think you're looking at open competition. I think I still think Haslam thinks he can get something out of Watson, Mike. What do you think?
Very well could, or you could be on the right track, but he could just think that he can actually get something out of Shedeur. Like maybe he thinks that one of these guys can turn Shedeur into the franchise quarterback. That also could be the way.
George said he'd be slapping mofos. McDaniels will be cleaning the confidence in Berea. He would have McDaniels going right to work. Not coaching related. What about Mac Jones, Mike? I like Mac Jones. I just think he'll be a heavier price though than what's his name? Malik Willis.
I agree.
But I like Mac Jones. I think he'd be all right. I like Malik Willis a lot though. I like what I saw from him, Mike. With that, if you were the Browns, you got Shedeur, you got Watson. How hard would you go after Malik Willis?
Depends on what the next head coach thinks. The next head coach thinks that he can get the most out of if he goes, I think I can make it work with Shedeur, then don't let anybody, or Watson or what have you. I don't know. This is the best answer.
If you were in charge, though, who would you go with out of the three? If you were in charge, I would go Malik Willis.
I would, from what I've seen, but I did see enough from Shedeur where I think there is something to work with. It really all depends. And again, we need to get better receivers. We need to get better O linemen. What does that look like with just a better supporting cast too? I don't know if that's something I want to explore or not.
Yeah, and I want to see Watson with a different coach. Like we had Stump on the other night. He was there. Obviously, he said he didn't. To fancy in his eyes, kind of mismanaged Watson and put him in the best position to be successful. So I think whoever you bring in, I want to see them get the most out of both of those guys, maybe in another guy you bring in. Because I don't think we've gotten the best out of a quarterback play here consistently in Cleveland.
Right.
McCarthy would get the most out of Shador. And like I said, Greg, you might be honest. I think McCarthy isn't a terrible candidate at all. He's at least proven. I think he does bring stability. He's definitely not a guy that he's not consideration here though. So,
yeah, he's not even an option. Yeah.
Yeah, if you didn't make it to the second interview, then we didn't interview him at all. And the only team he's interviewed was the Titans. So
Yeah.
and it seems like the Titans are going to go with Matt Nagy.
I saw
I'm
that.
not sure how I feel about that. I think I'd rather have McCarthy over Nagy personally. That's just me. Matt Nagy. What do you think of Matt Nagy?
As far as he's not my favorite retread in the world, but who's kind of dealt the not a very great hand in Chicago, and he still succeeded with a team that was captained by Mitch Trubisky and whose best weapon was Allen Robinson. So I mean, and who else was on that team? Darnell Mooney.
Yeah,
it was.
I get it, but here's the problem: a lot of these these offensive guys. Just because you got Andy Reid as coffee every morning, just because you breathe the same air as Andy Reid, doesn't mean you're the next Andy Reid.
Right.
Maybe with a second shot he'll be better. Now Jersey thinks Nagy blows. So yeah, he said Nagy was Andy Reid's OC. He should have never gotten hired in the first place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just because you get him his coffee and his donuts every morning and his cheeseburgers for lunch and breathes the same air as him doesn't mean you should be hired as his coach. I mean, that's kind of I feel like how this stuff goes. Like, I hope we're not hiring one of these guys. Oh, you're the guy you were with was connected to Sean McVay. You're hired. Like, you shook hands with Sean McVay. You're hired. Like, that's it. I feel like that's how it goes sometimes. So, they were right about Bieniemy. Yeah, Bieniemy was a guy. Remember, you used to hear his name a lot in the coaching circles. Now it's that's far gone. He's never gonna have a coaching job in the NFL. But so Mike, you say Udinski.
Yep.
He said no, he should get a job. Yeah, maybe. Well, I know the Schilhaas is on the list. Oh, he's not the OC. He's the. That's another thing though. Mike LaFleur is the OC for the Rams, and he's getting overlooked by the passing game coordinator, which that's kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that, Mike.
No, I've never seen that either. That is weird.
So that's interesting. I think Schilhaas will be a good OC and could become a head coach one day. Just not yet. But the Browns may feel they may hire him. Who knows? We'll see. It's going to get real interesting, Mike. And we're going to be here reacting to it live on my show, The Real, and Mike's show, The Professional Fan. You need to like, subscribe, and share, Mike.
Yeah, folks, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps us a lot. Thank you for all who chatted in and who all will comment on the watch back. But yeah, stay tuned. A couple more NFL games left for the big one, which falls on my 30th birthday. Me and Grant Udinski are about the same age, which is kind of a sobering thought.
I should just hire you.
Well, yeah, makes me think. makes me wonder, man. Maybe I should have gone to school. No, I'm kidding. Just like Jesus, there's gonna be a dude, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, same age as me, making millions of dollars. Whew. But yeah, like, subscribe, and share, folks. We love you very much. Thank you for joining us.
He said, "What do you do as the OC of Reid McVay? Get donuts and coffee." I mean, they do a lot of work. I mean, you learn a ton, and there's a lot that goes into being a coordinator. But I think it's more of the difference, though, is do you have the leadership qualities Reid and McVay have? Do you have the head coaching qualities? You know what I mean? Are you a CEO of the football team? That's the difference to me. A lot of these guys, they all know a lot of the same stuff. And a lot of these OCs, like Schilhaas, he draws up a lot of plays for McVay even. And, what makes a great head coach is the staff you put around you, because you got to have great staff around you. They do a lot of work for you. They keep everything held together, and that's who you lean on. But you're the head coach for a reason. So, that's what it's going to come down to. That's why I said with Udinski, don't just hire him because of his offensive pedigree. And he might be a wizard and all these terms we've heard, but can he lead a locker room? Sean McVay, we saw from day one. Yes, he could. That's what we got to find out with Udinski. Let's see. Who the hell celebrates their own birthday? He says, Jersey said, Mike. He said, you're essentially an assistant pimp. Assistant pimp. I like that. My Jersey says, Mike, Ronnie in the morning. Do you get that, Mike?
See. We shall see.
I don't think it's we shall see. I think he expects a Ronnie.
Big Daddy's eating ramen this week. So.
All right. Well, shout out to Greg. Shout out to Chantel, Jersey, my mom, Ethan Edwards. Where was my mom? Yeah, she said hello, Mike and Joseph. Dad and I are watching the big TV, so my mom says hello.
Hello.
And shout out to Param John as well, and everybody that tuned in tonight. Thank you to you and you on the playback. And if you haven't checked out our interview with Stump Mitchell from the other day, go check it out. It was a really great interview, Mike. I know a lot of people liked it. I got a lot of text about it from people who watched it, and so go check it out. It's in my channel, on my channel. Interview with Stump Mitchell. Go watch it. You'll learn a lot of stuff that went on during the years he was here, who they hired as head coach. Phenomenal interviews, some great stories about Stump, and just all kinds of things. So go check it out. There was even a story told on there about Odell Beckham and stuff that I don't think was ever told publicly before, about what really went on behind the scenes. Go watch the interview with Stump Mitchell and leave a comment on it, how much you like it. So, Wally, good to see you, brother. Good to see you, brother. He said, hello, Mama Lemon. Yes. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to Wally. Shout out to everybody. And, go check out the Stump interview. And he said, hello, Papa Lemon, too. So, shout out to you, Greg, and hope you have a good night, sir. And we'll see you back on the next one. I'm saluting Mike. Like, subscribe, share all the good stuff. We'll see you guys in the next one. I'm saluting. What are you doing, Mike?
I am attempting to do a backwards pull-up.
All righty. Well, don't hurt yourself. We'll see you next one. We're out of here. Gone.
Later.